really can't have the Pheonix Point mod discussion without talking about Terror from the Void. For the XCOM faithful, this is basically Long War, reworking the entire base game and adding new enemies, mechanics, and a lot of quality of life. Terror from the Void also gives you a ton of customization options when starting a new game, as well as options you can tweak to your preferences. For example, you can choose a starting area on the map or set a different difficulty for combat than the Geoscape layer. But there is one big catch. This mod requires you to have all the Pheonix Point DLC. All of it. But don't worry, later in the video I'll give you another mod for vanilla that adds in a lot of customization options as well. One more thing to mention about Terror from the Void. Not every mod in this list will be compatible with it. I'm going to start with the ones that are and then move on to the mods for vanilla Pheonix Point. If you're wondering, all of the mods compatible with Terror from the Void are also compatible with vanilla. So let's dive in. Facility Adjustments is a pretty simple but I think must-have mod. Instead of scrounging and flying all over the world trading for materials or ransacking havens and dealing with the consequences, this mod allows your research labs and fabrication plants to produce a set daily amount of tech and materials, which makes sense considering they can research bionic augmentations and build vehicles. You would think that they would be able to produce the vague resources of materials and tech. This just saves a lot of time and hassle, especially in the early stages when you're trying to pay to manufacture gear for all of your recruits. Pistol Proficiency is another no-brainer that gives all of your soldiers handgun proficiency. This might not sound like a big deal, but as you progress into the game and your soldiers continue to be rendered useless in combat when an arm gets disabled, you'll wonder why these highly trained individuals apparently don't know how to shoot a pistol to begin with. This situation happens a lot more than you might think, and it's one of the worst feelings in a tight battle to see your soldier become nothing more than a glorified decoy you have to manage to keep alive. This mod also gives you the option to buff the original two classes that can use handguns, the Sniper and Berserker, with added damage and accuracy to kind of keep it as a specialized thing for them. This next mod, free ammo, medkits, and grenades, just helps to move the economy along a little bit. I understand if some people don't want to play with this one to keep the realism part of having to pay to manufacture ammo and support items for your soldiers, but once things really get going and you're burning through ammunition and resources and trying to gear up new recruits all at the same time, the economy can really slow you down. This is a big issue in vanilla for me, and part of what forces you to fly all over the globe trading with anyone that's available. I should also mention that this mod makes those items not worth any scrap. Also, the chaos ammo from the marketplace still has to be bought. If you would like to keep a price on the basic items, another suggestion is to use the Facility Adjustments mod I talked about before and set the daily production of materials and tech just a little bit higher to help offset some of the costs. Storage and Living Quarters buff is a mod that does exactly what it says. Storage facility capacity is increased from 200 to 300 items, and the capacity in Living Quarters facilities is increased to 12 soldiers from 8. Base management and limited space is always a big deal, and I don't know about you, but I feel physical pain when I have to keep building things just to raise capacities and limits when I could instead be building more labs and factories for faster research and manufacturing. Or even more food production to feed those extra soldiers in the living quarters, I guess. This mod helps with all of that. Range control is a little mod that you can use to make things easier on yourself or harder. All it does is let you set the area that radar scans and mist repellers cover. For example, you could make it so that one base would have the scan range to cover the entire globe if you wanted to. Then you wouldn't have to build any more satellite uplinks and new bases. This goes for the mist repellers as well. You can set the maximum radius they cover and make things much easier on yourself. It should be noted that this doesn't change the speed, only the maximum range. A base with enough range to scan the entire globe, for instance, would still expand out at the same speed as usual and take time to finish scanning that whole area. Now, if you're playing vanilla Pheonix Point, or maybe you just don't have all of the DLC, Custom Campaigns is a great mod that adds a lot of customization, features, and starting options similar to Terror from the Void. This mod gives you the ability to set how many resources you start with, how many soldiers you start with, and even change if weapons require ammunition, although reloading is always still required. There's also options for manufacturing speed, settings for how often ambushes and haven attacks happen, and if you really want to, you can turn off the human population loss timer. Of course, all of these settings can also be increased to make the game incredibly more difficult if that's what you want. Either way, Custom Campaign is a must-have for any vanilla Pheonix Point player. Skip Intro is also a must-have mod and is basically just like XCOM's Stop Wasting My Time. This one is already implemented into the Terror from the Void package, but for vanilla players, it will skip past the intros and logos and gives the option to skip past all of the landing sequences before tactical missions. Don't worry, you won't miss anything important with this installed, you'll just have a little less pointless downtime between things. A nice quality of life change for sure, and one that should have been an option in the original game. Full Augmentations allows you to mutate and augment your soldiers to your heart's content. Standard Pheonix Point has a limit of 2 per soldier, but this mod removes that cap and lets you apply augments or mutations to the torso, head, and legs together if you so wish. This mod is not compatible with Terror from the Void, which is a shame. Terror from the Void does have a questline and research that you can use to unlock this same feature, but personally I think it's just a little bit tedious and I would like an option to just mutate the hell out of my soldiers immediately. If you're a vanilla player, this is the way. Grenade Throw Range Fix is a simple, straightforward mod that fixes a bug bug in the UI and an incorrect method for how the range of grenade throws is calculated. If you want to read all the coding and math, there is a breakdown of it on the Steam Workshop mod page, but basically, the way grenade ranges are calculated in vanilla Pheonix Point makes it so every grenade and soldier has the same range regardless of stats, and what is shown is the effective range on the UI. This changes the calculation and fixes it, so high strength soldiers especially will get a noticeable range increase with some of the grenades. This mod is also implemented into Terror from the Void already and therefore is not compatible with it. Better Enemies is a mod if you want a challenge that adjusts and tweaks the AI to make combat feel just a little bit more tactical and challenging, and the enemies feel smarter. It does this by adjusting the perks, stats, and abilities for human and Pandoran enemies, but it's not all just to make them harder. Some of the changes eliminate cheese and unrealistic things like being detected from across the map through a hole in the wall, and brings down some stats of the higher end enemies. There is a detailed, long list of the exact changes in the Steam Workshop if you want to check them out, but for most people I would say if you're looking for a little bit more of a challenge, then add this in. Better Enemies is actually already a part of Terror from the Void, so it is not compatible to run together. A mod that goes hand in hand with Better Enemies is Better Vehicles, and this mod just helps to make the vehicles a little bit more balanced and less complicated to use. It starts with adding more ammo for most of the vehicles. The exception to this is the Chaos Buggy, which gets a few nerfs and less ammo. Better Vehicles also adjusts the module upgrades for each vehicle and makes them so each hull and engine is more unique with its own benefits. It also fixes some of the tooltips that didn't correctly show the effects of some modules, making things clearer and easier to understand. As a bonus, you can add the Vehicle Resize to 2 mod to make vehicles take up 2 spots in transports rather than 3. Better Vehicles was reworked specifically for Terror from the Void, so it is not compatible with that. That's my list of the best mods for Pheonix Point and Terror from the Void. Drop a like if this video was helpful to you, and if you are into these XCOM style strategy games, check out the channel for more.